Hi, welcome back to Venture Recaps. Today I will talk about the movie titled Guardians. Spoilers ahead. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union embarked on a project called the Patriot headed by a scientist named Victor. The project involved genetically modifying humans to enhance their abilities and turn them into superweapons. As a result, several guinea pigs did not survive, and the only ones that managed to get out alive were Lernik, who can control rocks, Arsis, who can transform into a super-strong Bearman Khan, who is a ninja, and Xenia, who can control her temperature and make his body invisible in contact with water. Alongside this project, another one called Module 1 was developed by Professor Kiratov. The professor intended to create a technology capable of controlling any type of machine. Despite the scientist's efforts, the experiment failed, leading the authorities to shut down the entire department where he worked. Completely frustrated, Kiratov stole Victor's research. With the material in hand, he started to develop his superhumans without any kind of supervision. Unlike the experiments allowed by the government, those of Kiratov did not follow any kind of ethics. In the early stages of the Cold War, Kiratov was discovered and arrested for his crimes against humanity. However, he managed to escape and took refuge in the old genetics laboratory. During the attack on the lab, he caused a devastating explosion that contaminated him with substances that completely modified his genetic code. Now the owner of a frightening physical force, Kiratov became extremely powerful and could not be stopped by the authorities. He managed to complete the research of his original project, Module 1. With this, he decided to attach the invention to his own body, finally conquering the skill that he spent his life trying to possess, the power to control any type of electronic device. In the present day, a businessman is showcasing to the military a new machine developed for combat that works differently from others. It doesn't need anyone to control it, as it has artificial intelligence that can dodge attacks and hit several targets at the same time. To prove the potential of this device, the businessman sends the Russian tanks themselves to try to hit them. But for some reason, the motorized robots begin to destroy the tanks and even helicopters, even without being programmed for it. Worried, the businessman asks for reinforcements to finish with the robots, but the machines destroy the entire military arsenal of the base. At that moment, the robots turned to the command center where the businessman was and began to shoot the place, destroying the computers and eliminating all the people there. Suddenly, Kiratov gets out of the smoke and reveals that he was controlling the robots. He vows to take them with him to torment Russia and get his revenge. In a very short time, the news about what Kiratov did arrives at the Ministry of Defense, and the general of the government decides to resurrect the Patriot project, leaving Major Alina Larina in charge of locating the superhumans created by Kiratov and convincing them to help defend the entire planet from this new threat. The general then takes Elena to the former Patriot Project headquarters for her to meet with the team and begin investigating the whereabouts of the Guardians, asking that any kind of strange happening in recent years with the help of the Soviet database. The intelligence team finds several suspicious reports that point to various places on the planet and decides to start looking for Armenia, where rumors that a man of stone was seen trying to hide. When he finds Major, she introduces herself as the supervisor of the Patriot program, and the man threatens to use his powers in case she tries to take him. But she says the only thing she wants is to deal with a chance to get his revenge. Lernik says that all of his enemies are dead, but Major tells him that Kiratov is still alive and planning to eliminate all of Russia. With the revelation that the scientist is still alive, he doesn't think twice and decides to accompany Major. In Kazakhstan, Khan is found by a group of criminals who try to capture him. But as one of the vehicles approaches in his direction, the man manages to cross it with his teleporting power and leave the car in half along with the people in the passenger seat. After the first attack, the criminals start shooting, doing everything they can to hit Khan. But he manages to dodge all the projectiles while he shreds the enemy's bodies as if they were paper. At the end of the combat, Lernik appears and invites his old friend to join the revenge against Kiratov, and he even accepts but says it will not be easy. Then they accompany a group of the military to investigate reports of a bear man sighting in Siberia and discover that it is Arsis. While investigating, the military finds a laboratory, but they are caught by Arsis. As soon as he sees Lernik, he immediately understands what it is about and agrees to help them. The trio leaves for Moscow, where Xenia has joined his circus to use his powers in the performances, enchanting crowds and making a lot of money. After another one of his shows, Xenia goes to a dressing room where Khan is waiting to talk. But as she lost her memory decades ago, she doesn't recognize him and starts attacking him. Khan fights back, thinking that Xenia just wanted to remember the old times when they trained together. However, when she notices the presence of Lernik, the acrobat begins to realize that something strange is happening. As they both talk to her as if they were old friends, even confused, the woman continues on the defensive and attacks. Lernik knows exactly how to respond to his attacks since it was he who taught her. Arsis interrupts the fight, explaining that they were all friends in the past and that they have powers just like her. With that, she finally calms down and the Guardian invites them to together defeat Kuratov, the man who ended their lives. Willing to do anything to be able to remember who she was, she accepts to join the team and tells a little more about her memory loss. She explains that the doctors said her memories would come back with time, but it has been more than 40 years, and she only remembers her own name because of a ring that is on his finger. With the full team, they are ready for their first mission, and the general says that they managed to locate the stolen tanks in Kuratov's hideout. However, they will have to act fast before they lose an element of surprise. The group then goes to an old junkyard where they find several guards, and they are preparing to attack. But as it is raining, it is decided that Xenia goes ahead, taking advantage of the water to be invisible and explore enemy lines. As she quietly passes the soldiers, Lernik tries to communicate with the base to track Kuratov. Alina can't hear him as the signal is being blocked. Not suspecting that Kuratov already knows they are there, Xenia advances unseen through the guards. But one of them sees the footprints and raindrops hitting Xenia. As soon as he notices someone visible among them in thermal vision, the man alerts everyone to shoot a gas bomb, revealing her true form. On the other side of the hideout, Arsus assumes his half-man, half-bear form and advances towards the soldiers with only his brute strength. With his thick skin, the shots barely tickle Arsus, who keeps killing his enemies. Finally realizing the inefficiency of the traditional weapons, the men prepare a hunting net with which they finally manage to immobilize Arsus. Khan continues to pass the soldiers like a ghost, eliminating them silently. But when one of the guards appears with a minigun, the Soviet ninja is forced to use his teleportation ability to eliminate him. Shortly after that, he is cornered by a whole group of men, but manages to deal with them quickly, eliminating them all before the first body falls to the ground. At that moment, a sniper appears and Khan manages to neutralize him with a throwing knife, but ends up being hit by a sedative that makes him fall unconscious on the ground. Being the only Guardian still standing, Lernik uses the rocks around to form the stone fists with which he can eliminate several enemies. But as more men appear, he needs to gather the rocks around his body, making armor almost impenetrable. But at that moment, Kuratov appears. Lernik tries to keep his distance to have some kind of advantage, but his opponent manages to get close and destroy the armor at the base of the blow. Kuratov manages to knock him out with a knee to the back, leaving him almost lifeless on the ground. As she cannot communicate with the Guardians to know if they are okay, the Major sends a helicopter to rescue them. But when he arrives at the place, he finds only Lernik unconscious not far from there. Arsus and Xenia are captured by Kuratov, who offers them the chance to join him. But when everyone refuses, Kuratov decides to put his plan into practice without them by ordering an army of military vehicles to head into central Moscow and destroy everything in their path. In a panic spreading, the citizens start to evacuate the city, and the general, who is a traitor, goes to Kuratov to collect his part of the deal. Because he has already set an ambush to capture the Guardians, but in the end his betrayal was worth nothing because Kuratov loses his patience and suffocates him until he eliminates him. In the hospital, Lernik finally wakes up and vents to Major about how bad it was to have lived long enough to bury his daughter and grandchildren in his life. Elena tries to comfort him but is interrupted when a nurse says that a scientist who claims to have worked there and is wanting to talk to her. Interested, Major leaves the room and discovers that the scientist is Victor, who was responsible for the Patriot Project at the time of the Cold War. Victor offers his services to help stop the destruction that Kuratov is causing. Elena asks Victor to help recover Lernik, while the military invades the Kuratov's base to rescue the rest of the team. After eliminating the guards, the Major finally manages to free the Guardians and talks about the General's betrayal, saying that she is now 100% in command. Meanwhile, Kuratov steals the transmitter and uses it to take control of the Sledgehammer, a Soviet space station that was built during the Cold War. As soon as it learns about it, the Ministry of Defense goes into a state of alert. To try to stop the villain, the Ministry of Defense sends some fighter jets to the transmitter to try to destroy it and eliminate Kuratov. But as soon as he notices the enemies approaching, Kuratov controls the robots to take down the aircraft, while he is protected by a force field. Already imagining that this first strike would fail, the government scientists developed special outfits for each of the Guardians, increasing their defenses and expanding their powers even more by adapting their abilities with the new equipment. The Guardians begin to learn about their new equipment. Lernik can easily use his new electric whip to control rocks. In the case of Xenia, her new costume has the ability to make her invisible even out of the water, allowing her to make everything she touches disappear. Now that everyone has adapted to the equipment, the Guardians begin even more intense training until they learn to combine their powers working as a team. With the Ministry of Defense, they come up with a plan where the Guardians must destroy the transmitter and deactivate the force field so that the military can finally eliminate Kuratov. To get to him faster, the Guardians decide to separate. Lernik uses the underground subway. Using his skills to make the ground collapse on the feet of one of the guards, he wields his whip and throws a soldier against a car and throws the others away. But when reinforcements arrive shooting, Lernick is forced to come up with a new strategy and decides to transform his whip into a kind of shield to defend himself. As soldiers keep coming, Lernick hides behind a row of cars until he sees a breach and takes the opportunity to neutralize the enemies. Outside the building, Arsus rushes towards a car, making the enemies fly away. At that moment, Xenia passes a cannon to Arsus, who uses it to eliminate the dozens of soldiers that try to attack them. To avoid being hit, some of the men retreat behind a jeep where an invisible silhouette comes. They shoot thinking it was Xenia, but it was nothing more than a trap of hers to make them shoot at their companion. Even though they were outnumbered, the Guardians duo ends up losing the advantage when Kuratov's men arrive with more reinforcements, along with those super technological robots that shoot missiles. The constant battle makes Arsus' greatest fear come true. He loses his human side and fully transforms into a bear, now more lethal than ever. The new creature advances against soldiers who have no chance of surviving. After the enemies are defeated, Arsus goes up to one of the robots and directs his shots against another machine. He then goes back to pick up Xenia. Together, they head towards the elevator of a destroyed mall. They cross a fallen pillar that is serving as a bridge to the transmission tower, while Khan is on a plane circling over their heads. Back at the headquarters, Victor tells Elena that the only way the Guardians can defeat Kuratov is by combining their powers. On their way to Kuratov's location, Arsu is hit and almost knocked off the top. Lernick transforms his whip into a shield just as Khan jumps out of the plane and manages to cut in half the base where the snipers are gathered. The Guardians keep advancing until they reach the generator where Xenia says they need some kind of metal to close a short circuit. However, Khan says that no metal can withstand the heat, and she decides to use her own body as a ground, counting on its thermal resistance ability to not melt to the bones. As Xenia's boldness breaks the force field, they complete their mission, but the Guardians refuse to retreat and continue to rise to face Kuratov. As they approach him, it is revealed that Kuratov can easily control their suits. Lernick decides to attack and throws his whip at Kuratov, but his strike is easily defended and both he and Khan are knocked out quite easily. Xenia uses her ability to make her Lernick invisible. Kuratov can't predict where the attacks will come from, and they manage to land several blows with the whip on him. But when they try to immobilize him so that they can finish him, Kuratov takes the opportunity to knock out the three with his super strength. At that moment, Kuratov advances towards Xenia, but Arsus notices this and decides to risk everything to protect her, turning back into a bear. But even in Berserker mode, he is knocked out with a single punch. Major sends a plane to rescue the Guardians so they can bomb Kuratov. Khan throws one of his blades into the plane, trapping them with a rope for everyone to flee. But at the moment when they are escaping, Kuratov uses his powers to make the aircraft fall, forcing the Guardians to throw themselves into the middle of a river. When they reach the bank, the quartet finds Elena, who asks them not to come back because the Ministry of Defense has already sent its missiles. However, with her powers, Kuratov can easily divert the projectiles. After the failure of the Major's mission, she explains what Victor said to her about how the Guardians can join their powers to kill Kuratov, but they will risk their life as well. The Guardians take the risk and start transferring all of their powers to Lernick, forming an energy sphere that gets bigger and bigger. After successfully transferring all their powers into a massive energy ball, the Guardians release an attack that sweeps through and destroys everything in its path, including the building Kuratov was on. Kuratov falls to his death. The news channel reported on the recent events, claiming that no terrorist group has confirmed its role in the attacks. Finally, Elena meets with the Guardians and thanks them for their heroic efforts in saving the world. However, the Guardians insist that they were not born to be heroes and that they will return to their normal lives from now on. Before they leave, Major informs them that they need to find other survivors of the Patriot Project, suggesting that they may need their help in the future. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Venture Recaps. We hope you enjoyed reliving this movie. If you want to keep up with our latest movie recaps and reviews, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Don't forget to leave a comment below to let us know which movies you want us to recap next, and feel free to share this video with your friends and family who love movies as much as we do. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.